This meeting of the Essex County Board of Chosen Freeholders is hereby called to order. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak and to be in compliance with the governor's executive order, this meeting is being conducted remotely. The public is able to view this meeting via a live stream on YouTube. The link to the live stream is on our Freeholder website. That is https://ecfnj.com, EssexCountyFreeholdersNJ.com. Again, you can find us at www.ecfnj.com for a link to view this meeting. To all that are participating in this meeting, please be mindful to put your microphone on mute until speaking. Additionally, please identify your name on the record each time before you speak. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper.
Here.
Freeholder Graham.
Here.
Freeholder Johnson.
Here.
Freeholder Luciano.
Here.
Freeholder Mercado.
Here.
Freeholder Pomares.
Here.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Here.
Freeholder Sebol.
Here.
Freeholder President Gill.
Here. We're going to omit the salute to the flag while we're conducting this meeting remotely. However, I am going to ask that we take a moment of silence, in particularly for the 1,139, that's 1,139 individuals that we have lost who are Essex County residents during this crisis in the last 30 days. We are unfortunately have the most lives lost of any county in the state, and I'm going to ask that we recognize those souls with a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, I have before me certification that this meeting is in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Madam Clerk, are there any transcripts to be approved?
Yes, Mr. President, there are two. They are from the conference board meetings on March 11th, 2020 and March 25th, 2020.
Okay, thank you. Freeholders, do we have any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Freeholders, I have a motion from Freeholder Cooper and a second from Freeholder Graham to approve the transcripts. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Sebol.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, are there any topics of discussion?
Mr. President, there are none.
Okay. Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to the public comment session today. This afternoon's meeting is a combined conference board meeting, and we will vote on every item on the agenda. However, since we are meeting remotely, the public has had the opportunity to submit questions and comments for consideration. At this point of the meeting, the clerk will read those questions on agenda items only into the record at this time and state the name of the constituents.
Mr. President, I received 9 emails for public comment. However, these will be read at the second public comment of the meeting because these are not referring to any agenda items.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Since there are no questions to be read at this time, we can move to the next agenda items. Madam Clerk, do we have any ordinances or resolutions for introduction and first reading?
Mr. President, we have none.
Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have any ordinances or resolutions for listing purposes only?
Mr. President, we have none.
Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have any ordinances or resolutions on second reading and public hearing tonight?
Mr. President, we do. Ordinance number O-2020-000111.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to ordinance O-2020-00011 and read it into the record at a later time. Okay. I hereby declare that the public hearing on ordinance O-2020-0011 open. If there's any member of the public who emailed comments for or against this ordinance, we will read the comments into the record and respond to you in writing. Let the record reflect, Madam Clerk, that there were no comments were received. Mr. McInerney, do we have any questions or comments?
Sorry, Mr. President. No, I do not.
Okay. Mr. Parlavecchio?
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Again, this is just an amendment to existing ordinances that allows consumption of alcohol at certain county facilities, and this will add the 3 county golf courses to that list.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Parlavecchio. Freeholders, do you have any questions or comments? Okay, Freeholders, I have a motion from Freeholder Graham and a second from Freeholder Johnson to close the public hearing on ordinance O-2020-000011. Do I have the same mover and a second to approve the ordinance?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Sebol,
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson,
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares,
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado,
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano,
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson,
Yes.
Freeholder Graham,
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper,
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll now move to resolution number 1, which is with the Department of Parks. We'll read it into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board. Resolution 1 is from our Parks Department. It's a 24-month contract extension with GSP Properties, and they do masonry work in and around our county parks. It is for contract period going for 24-month extensions. This current contract expires on May 6th. The services provided, as examples, of decorative signs around the bases of Riker Hill. We have catch basins that were done at Brookdale Park and Wheatley Park, and the retaining wall at Kitts Castle are the kinds of work that they do in and around the county, athletic benches and foundations and so forth. So this is just a 24-month extension. I should say at the same amount as the previous contract.
Okay, Mr. Parlavecchio.
Yes, Mr. President, as Mr. Jackson said, this will be at the same amount as the initial 2-year term of contract that was awarded in 2018. I could note that we spent under $400,000 of that $625,000 on the initial term of the contract. So this again is a not to exceed amount.
Thank you, Mr. Parlavecchio. Mr. McInerney.
Mr. President, this amount will be paid out of the county's operating budget for the $625,295 over the 2-year period. I do have a question, if I can. It's a general question with regard to contracts that the board will be sitting on the agendas going forward. Is there any distinguishment that's going to be made between those contracts that are being let because they've been evaluated or because they're the lowest responsible bid, and those that we are just extending, as discussed at the last meeting, for purposes of the fact that we need to get our contracts passed in order to provide those services. So what I'm asking is, there's contracts that we're approving because they're the lowest responsible bid, they're current contracts with extensions, and then those contracts that we're approving because we're just giving them an extension for some period of time to the end of the year because of the COVID-19 issues. So are we going to be able to distinguish between the two?
Yes. The ones that we did for the 6 months or toward the end of the year, we basically won't see again until January when we come up with new contracts for those. But these, like this one, where we're doing a 2-month extension, frankly, you'll see this is being identified. But for the most part, you won't see any others at all until January.
And so that again was that was a $15 million or some large sum that the board approved at a previous meeting that will automatically allow you to extend those contracts without coming back to the board.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
right.
Okay, I just want to clarify that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McInerney. Freeholders, do you have any questions or comments? Mr. Jackson, and we've discussed this before, and I think it's important to put on the record, particularly for the public who may be watching this and maybe watching it later. And can we just give some context to, in light of the current crisis that we're dealing with, the potential financial situation that the state and county might be facing? Why we would still be
continuing on with the functional county government in spite of the environment that we're in. And these are monies that were budgeted for in our 2020 budget.
Thank you. Freeholders, any additional questions or comments? Okay, I have a motion from Freeholder Johnson and a second from Freeholder Luciano. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper,
Yes.
Freeholder Graham,
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson,
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano,
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado,
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares,
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson,
Yes.
Freeholder Siebel,
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, let's move to resolutions number 2 through 9, which are from the Department of Public Works. We can read each of them into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item 2 is a contract, a 150-day contract with JC Contracting Inc. to provide for road intersection improvements at Main Street and Scotland Road in the amount of $721,305. 4 bids received, and this is the lowest responsible bidder. This is going to come from grant funding that we got from the Federal Highway Administration. It's going to include at that intersection new poles, new mast arms, new lights, new control box, sidewalks, more paving of the intersection, improved pedestrian safety, a dedicated left turn lanes, new curbing, which are going to be ADA compliant, and high visibility crosswalks. Item 3 is a contract with KS Engineering, to provide for professional services. This is the engineering firm that will be overseeing these improvements, an amount of $122,318.87. 6 proposals were received, and KS Engineering, again, was deemed to be the best to perform this function. This will also be provided from Federal Highway Administration funds. Item 4 is a professional services agreement with French and Perillo Associates in an amount not to exceed $43,000. And this is to design our design services for our 2020 roadway resurfacing program. There are 9 proposals received, and it's a public advertised fair and open RFP, and this will come from capital funding. Number 5, Division of Fleet Management is to provide one new tow truck, a cab, and chassis with rollback aluminum body. This is an amount not to exceed $138,992. It's going to replace our current vehicle, which is 20 years old, and this will come from capital funding. Item 6. It's simply a supporting resolution when the County of Essex and the County of Hudson have come up with a plan to replace the street bridge over the Sage River and improvements that go with that. And this is an agreement between that to participate essentially in that supporting that design. And when the costs are done and when the plan comes in, we will be splitting these costs with the County of Hudson. Item 7 is the contract award to Smith-Sondy to provide CDBG roadway improvements, roadway resurfacing program in the amount of $1,339,637.60. 4 bids were received, and they were the lowest and most responsive bidder. The funding for this is going to come from 2 sources. CDBG, which would be approximately $856,000, and capital, which would be approximately $483,000. The roads that will be done there are going to be Franklin Street between York Avenue and Berkeley Avenue in Bloomfield, Grove Street between Abington Avenue to Beardsley Avenue, Bloomfield, Grove Street, Beardsley Avenue, Bloomfield Avenue, Bloomfield, Springfield Avenue between South 20th and South Jacob Street in Newark, Springfield Avenue, South Jacob to Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard, Newark, and Brook Street, Oak Road to Clinton Road in Fairfield. Item 8 is a contract for Liberty Mechanical Contractors in the amount of $1,075,000. This is to replace the boiler at 50 South Clinton Street, and this capital is from capital funding, which is part of. I think we discussed that leadership. Frank, this is part of the $20 million that we do every year. This was allocated for this boiler replacement. Item 9 is a contract with I'm sorry, City Control Products, excuse me. This is for, we received 2 bids, City Control Products for $350,000 for 2 years. They provide for traffic signal materials that we use for some of our replacement projects, either accidents and so forth. They replace those. 2 vendors here, Signal Control Products and General Traffic Equipment Corporation. Signal Products is $350,000 for the 2 years, and General Traffic Equipment $50,000 for the 2 years. And again, this will come from capital funding. Those are the projects.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Polavecchio.
Yes, Mr. President, I have a question on number 6. Item 6, resolution 6 is simply the approval of the concept to do the bridge replacement here. What are the next phases, and do we have a timeline for what the next steps are with this project?
I don't have that in front of me, Mr. Polavecchio, but I will get that and get back to you.
Thank you.
We'll make a call and we'll get that information to you.
Okay, so I guess I could take it that those aren't in place or in the near immediate future to get the bid out and some other engineering design drawings and the typical things that go with this kind of project. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Okay, Mr. McInerney?
Mr. President, all of the public work contracts, with the exception of the professional ones, resolutions number 3 and 4 are, which were done via evaluations, are all lowest responsible bids.
Okay, thank you. Freeholders, do I have any comments or questions?
Yes, this is Freeholder Cooper. I have a question for resolution number 4. When you go through and get to the recommendation memo and the evaluations, there were 2 other companies with lower numbers, cost numbers than the one that you selected. One group in particular looks like about $1,800 off. The points for proposed costs are the same. What were the major differences between that one and the one that you picked?
Yeah,
Can
I'm
you
sorry,
recall?
which one were you looking at? 40, item 4?
Item 4, the group you picked came in at 43, and you have another one that's slightly different at 41,000. And on some of the columns, they seem to have scored the same, but then there's a difference. So I was just curious as to what was the difference?
Well, price doesn't really factor that much at all into the equation. We've had very good experience with a number of these, but particularly with respect to French and Barilla and their design of these kinds of road improvements. I think the engineering department and the Department of Public Works just felt that it was the best choice for this project. Sometimes it's I mean, I can get more specific information from the department, but many times it's their sense of what of these firms is the best job for this particular, best skill set for this particular type of job. So it's not always, for a given project, there may be 3 or 4 firms that can do the work, but which one seems to have the best approach and the best understanding of the project to be completed. It's not always necessarily cut and dry in that regard.
All right,
thank you. I can get more information from the Department of Public Works.
No, your explanation was fine, Mr. Jackson. I have another question for resolution 6.
Mhm.
What exactly is this resolution seeking approval from us for? It's a lot of information here, and it doesn't seem to have a dollar value attached to it. Is this purely us giving the approval for you guys to explore alternatives?
This is basically saying that the board is supporting this alternative to replace the bridge. There are a number of alternatives to replace the bridge, but between Hudson and Essex County, they came up with engineering departments that came up with a preferred alternative, and this is submitting that preferred alternative for consideration by the state, and then, which I think will take, about 2 years before we get to the next phase of this project. So this is basically saying, this is what we believe to be the best approach to address replacing this bridge.
All right, so this is just to send this approval, this alternative that you came up with to the state for them to evaluate your recommendation.
Right,
All
I
right.
should say to the state and the federal government, because for us to get federal funding, we have to get the board to say we're in on this. We agree with this approach. Or we support our department's we support the Department of Public Works and Department of Public Works for Hudson County and for Essex. We support their proposed solution.
Thank you.
Okay, Freeholders, additional questions or comments? Mr. Jackson, resolution number 2 for the intersection improvements on Main Street and Scotland Road. Did those come back to the board for additional contracts to be awarded, or is everything contained in this particular resolution?
Everything is contained in this resolution.
Okay. I'm assuming that each of these intersection improvements is being done in compliance with the county's complete streets policy?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Freeholders, I have a motion from Freeholder Luciano and a second from Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebel,
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson,
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado,
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares,
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano,
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson,
Yes.
Freeholder Graham,
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper,
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to resolution number 10, which is from the Board of Taxation. We can read it into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, this is a resolution to support the firm of Samuel Klein and Company to provide auditing and accounting services for the Office of the Board of Taxation, a publicly advertised, fair and open RFP. And this is the same vendor and amount as our last contract. And this is from operating funds.
Okay, Mr. Parlavecchio.
Excuse me,
I don't have
this
any
is
questions.
$2,500.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Parlavecchio.
No questions.
Mr. McInerney.
Mr. President, this contract is done on an annual basis. Samuel Klein prepares the equalization table to allocate the county taxes among the individual municipalities of Essex County.
Okay, thank you. Freeholders, any additional questions or comments? Okay, I have a motion from Freeholder Mercado and a second from Freeholder Pomares. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper,
Yes.
Freeholder Graham,
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson,
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano,
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado,
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares,
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson,
Yes.
Freeholder Siebel,
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's move to resolution number 11 and 12, which are from the Department of Citizen Services, and we can read them into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, this is a contract with two community-based service providers to provide services for homeless seniors within the county of Essex, June 1, 2020 to May 31, 2021, an amount not to exceed $400,000. Publicly advertised fair and open RFP. We received 4 responses. This is a response to an ordinance that the Freeholder Board created in 2015. Funding of this comes from the Registrar's Office, which has a surcharge on every document recorded in the amount of $3. Just to note, 70% of the homeless population in our county are classified as seniors. And these groups are going to provide for medium and long-term rental assistance, housing search, and case management for seniors to ensure that they obtain and retain permanent housing. So the first and the organizations are going to receive equal amounts of money. The organizations are the Township of Bloomfield and the Newark and vicinity YMCA, again, providing each receiving $200,000. Item 12 is a similar source of funding, but this is to provide for services for victims of domestic violence within our county for the same time period. There's also a matrix involved. You can see on the documentation showing who's getting the dollars, but again, this is from the same $3 fund from the registrar's office, and the youth receiving funding, I should say, are Access Family Services, $200,000, and Youth Community Corporation, $200,000. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Parlavecchio,
No questions, Mr. President.
Mr. McInerney.
No questions.
Freeholders, questions or comments? Mr. Jackson, on resolution 11, do we have the ability to maybe this might be a question for Mr. Parlavecchio. I know we talked about it briefly in leadership about potentially amending our ordinance to increase the amount of money that we might be able to put into this fund.
Yes, Mr. President, the state law does allow us to do an additional $2 that can be used for co-brew activities, and the current register is very much in favor of doing that, and is working to put together something to present to the board, because the board would have to pass a resolution, an ordinance allowing that. And I think he's going to be, he will be saying something to county council to review, to present to the board.
Okay, great. I mean, obviously with, unfortunately, what it looks like we're about to approach, this may be a fund, if we are able to do that, that would make some sense to do it. So look forward to seeing that as fast as possible, from our constitutional officer.
And just to know, too, Mr. President, there are approximately $814,000 in this fund now. So this $800,000 is going to essentially almost exhaust those funds. So we need to keep generating funds, but we need to find another source to support the activities just in community.
Okay. Freeholders, any additional questions or comments? Freeholders, I have a motion from Freeholder Pomaris and a second from Freeholder Siebel to take resolutions 11 and 12. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebel,
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson,
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares,
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado,
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano,
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson,
Yes.
Freeholder Graham,
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper,
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. We're going to move to resolutions 13 through 16, which are from our hospital center. You can read them into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, as you remember, as members of the board know, we have at the hospital a number of affiliation agreements, and these are 4 of those, one of which is new with the New York University to provide for mental health clinicians. The others are with institutions that you probably know well, Volusia College, Montville State University, and Caldwell University, to provide for, generally for nursing students to come in and function at the hospital. It's good for us because we get to see some good talent, good for them because they get some real life experience, and none of these programs have any cost for the county.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Parlavecchio.
Right, no additional questions.
Mr. McInerney.
No questions, Mr. President.
Freeholders, any questions or comments? Okay, Freeholders, I have a motion from Freeholder Siebold and a second from Freeholder Cooper to take resolutions 13 through 16 as one. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper,
Yes.
Freeholder Graham,
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson,
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano,
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado,
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares,
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Siebel,
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, let's move to resolutions number 17 and 18, which are budget insertions from the Division of Community Health Services. Please read them into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson?
Mr. President, item 17, we were able to, through the efforts of our County Health Officer, Maya Laura, were able to receive a grant of $5,615.38 to help with our COVID-19 efforts. This can be used for a combination of training and improved preparedness activities, as well as to purchase certain things like thermometers and PPE. And it will help us, in our efforts to combat the COVID-19 onslaught. Item 18 is another budget insertion for the PASP program, Personal Assistance Program from the Department of Health. It's going to provide for $160,038 funding for administrative services and oversight of this program. This program provides services to the physically disabled Essex County adults aged 18 to 70. There's no county match for this. The total grant is $1,137,306, of which $977,268 goes to the direct allocations, and the balance, the $160 I just mentioned, we're able to use for our administrative costs.
Thank you. Mr. Parlavecchio.
I don't have anything to add, Mr. President.
Mr. McInerney?
No comments, Mr. President.
Okay, freeholders, questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion from freeholder Cooper and a second from freeholder Graham on resolutions 17 and 18, and take it as one. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebel,
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson,
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares,
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado,
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano,
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson,
Yes.
Freeholder Graham,
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper,
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, moving to resolutions number 19 and 20, which are from the prosecutor's office, and we can read them into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, this is a resolution that the board would offer to the Office of the Attorney General. It's a revised approval of participation resolution. One of the things that we've done previously did not include the amount of the county match. There's a county match of $2,936, and this is just a revised approval participation resolution. This funding will use for overtime pay for the Essex County Prosecutor Office detectives involved in the investigation and prosecution of major crimes, particularly homicides. And this, as I said, this was previously approved but required and revised resolution of participation. Item 20 is for the acquisition of an emergency response and rescue truck for the department, for the prosecutor's office, particularly for major crimes. This is a new vehicle, and it basically puts in one vehicle a number of things that they had in other vehicles, so they're able to respond more efficiently to scenes, to major crime scenes, as a result of having this vehicle. And the amount of the acquisition is $233,252, and this is going to be purchased through trust funding, the Essex County Prosecutor's asset forfeiture account.
Okay. Mr. Parlavecchio.
Thanks, Mr. President. Mr. Jackson, just on number 20, I may not have heard you. I did hear that it's being paid for out of the prosecutor's trust fund. But is it replacing an existing vehicle or a number of, or performing the service of a number of existing vehicles that they have?
No, Ms. Farley, it's actually a new vehicle. This is not a replacement. But what the prosecutor's office has found is that its ability to respond to certain particularly major crime scenes is, how would I put it, not as organized as it could be if they had one vehicle that would have all the equipment and all of the lighting, all the technology that it needs in one spot to respond. And this vehicle, it's sort of like, I don't know if you can see this, but this is sort of what it sort of looks like. This is what it looks like. And it will be used to respond to major crimes.
So it makes their response much more efficient.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. McInerney?
I have no questions, Mr. President.
Freeholders? Just a follow-up question to Mr. Polavecchio's question, and I think, Mr. Jackson, this might have been in the supporting documentation, and I just don't remember, but the technology that would be within the vehicle, is that listed in our backup documentation?
Yes, it was. It's called alternate number 1.
Okay.
And I don't know if I can go through some of those things if you want. It's right there. It was all listed in the background.
Thank you. No, that won't be necessary. I just wanted to make sure to review it. It's obviously, as discussed, it's from the trust fund, but it's a $200,000 plus vehicle. So I just wanted to make sure I knew everything that the vehicle could do for $200,000.
And I would say this, and I understand your concern, Mr. President, but I would say this: given the fact that we are unfortunately number 1 in business in this regard, for our prosecutor's office not to have this type of vehicle is not a good thing. I mean, we need the league to put it in a weird context, but we have a lot of activity, and unfortunately in Essex, we have a lot of activity, and this is pretty much standard fare among other counties, and we need that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jackson. Freeholders, are there any additional questions or comments on resolutions 19 and 20? I have a motion from Freeholder Graham and from Freeholder Johnson to take resolutions 19 and 20 as one. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper,
Yes.
Freeholder Graham,
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson,
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano,
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado,
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares,
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson,
Yes.
Freeholder Siebel,
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving to resolution number 21. This is a resolution that I put on the agenda. Wanted to see the board's willing to sponsor this by acclamation. It's a resolution encouraging the federal government to provide additional direct assistance to counties and municipalities. Essex County was lucky enough to receive some of the first round of the CARES Act. However, and Mr. Jackson, this is probably something that we looking to get a report on, relatively soon. There seems to be quite a few restrictions, both at the state and the county level, on what that money can be used for. And so I'm anxious to see, and probably I also wanted to flag this for Mr. McInerney, what the plan, what the plan is going to be with the first installment of the CARES Act money. That being said, this is a resolution that that many other counties, and I believe NJAC asked us to do as well, that really encourages the federal government to do additional direct assistance, to our state and county governments and municipal governments, our county and municipal governments, not state, to help us deal with this crisis.
So if I
unless
could
it-
chime in,
Yep.
Mr. President, I certainly want to be a part of that. So I'm in agreement with doing it via acclamation if the rest of the freeholders are. But definitely put my name to it.
I agree, by acclamation would be appropriate.
I agree.
Freeholder Graham supports it also.
Mr. President, Freeholder Pomares, I'd be supportive of it as well.
Freeholder Johnson would also.
Freeholder Cooper, 2.
Seabold also.
Graham also. I don't know if you heard me the first time.
I think we can do it by acclamation, Madam Clerk. So we can read into the record at a later time. Do we need to take a roll call vote on 21 or separately?
You don't need to. You can take them all at once, or if you wanted to take them separately.
Yeah, let's work through the rest of them and just move that to acclamation. We also have resolutions 22 through 41, which are memoriam resolutions that we will read into the record at a later time. I will say, Madam Clerk, for our next, just going forward for our next meeting, particularly those memoriams that we're able to do for members of our county family that we lost due to COVID, I would like to read those names into the record for our next, going forward for our next meeting. But for the purposes of this meeting, resolutions number 22 through 41 are all memoriam resolutions. If we have a motion to do 21 through 41 as one, we have a mover in Freeholder Luciano and a second in Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Seabold.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, let's move to the reports of board committees. Do we have any legislative reports? Written communication?
Mr. President, this is Freeholder Cooper.
Yep.
I have a quick question. For Administrator Jackson, is it possible for you to get a status of the CAT test pilot program that we did? I had Mama Mia and a couple other people reach out to me to ask me some questions, trying to plan for the future. So that information would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, written communication, unfinished business, new business, public comment. Madam Clerk, let's go to the public comment session on non-agenda items. However, since we are meeting remotely, the public had the opportunity to submit questions via email. Madam Clerk, please state the name of the constituents, identify the topics, and please read the questions or comments into the record, and we will respond to them in writing.
Mr. President, the first public comment I have is from Jake Effers, and it reads, "Dear Freeholder President, my name is Jake Effers. I live in Montclair. I am calling to demand the release of people detained and held by ICE in our community in the face of COVID pandemic. New York and New Jersey are at the epicenter of an unprecedented health crisis, and there are more cases of coronavirus among immigrants in New Jersey detention centers than all. Dear Freeholder President Gill, my name is Jake Effros. I live in Montclair. I'm calling to demand the release of people detained and held by ICE in our community in the face of the COVID pandemic. New York and New Jersey are at the epicenter of an unprecedented health crisis, and there are more cases of coronavirus amongst immigrants in New Jersey detention centers than all other states combined. The profits of New Jersey County should not come before human lives in any circumstances, but you supported this contract with ICE, and consequently, these deaths are on your hands. The Bergen County, Hudson, Essex County, and Elizabeth Correctional Facilities are utterly incapable of keeping people safe. Those detained at these 4 facilities must be released immediately, and Essex County must end the contract you endorse with ICE. Will you take action to stop the spread of the coronavirus and publicly support the release of all detainees and end to ICE arrests and transfers between facilities and the termination of the ICE contract you supported? Thanks for your attention, and I look forward to a response soon. Jake Effros. The next public comment is from Jacqueline Broslow. Essex County Freeholder President Gill, my name is Jacqueline Broslow. I live in Brooklyn, New York. I was a paralegal assisting with the deportation defense cases from 2014 to 2018. And this work brought me to visit ICE detainees held in New Jersey jails frequently. With my personal knowledge of the inadequate medical treatment available in these facilities, I'm terrified at this time of the pandemic for our community and members detained in New Jersey. I'm emailing your office to demand the release of people detained and held by ICE in our community and in the face of the COVID pandemic. New York and New Jersey are at the epicenter of an unprecedented health crisis, and there are more cases of coronavirus among immigrants in New Jersey detention centers than all. The Bergen, Hudson, Essex County, and Elizabeth correctional facilities are utterly incapable of keeping people safe. Those detained at those 4 facilities must be released immediately, and Essex County must end the contract you endorse with ICE. Will you take action to stop the spread of the coronavirus by publicly support the release of all detainees and putting it into ICE arrests and transfers between the facilities? Next public comment is from Simone Norman. Hi, my name is Simone Norman, and I live in New York City. I'm calling to demand the release of people detained and held by ICE in our community in the face of the COVID pandemic. New York and New Jersey are at the epicenter of an unprecedented health crisis, and there are more cases of the coronavirus among immigrants in New Jersey detention centers than all.
Madam Clerk, not to cut you off, but these sound like a chain, the same email, just with different signatures. So could we just, how many of these particular emails do we have? Why don't we just read the name and address of each person? You're reading the same email, you're reading the same letter again and again.
Yes, this particular person lives in New York City. If they're similar, should I just state their name and it's a similar letter?
Just state their name. If it's the same email, just same email and just state their name and their and their address. and that, and that'll be read into the record at a later time.
Okay. This is
Or
a,
actually, Mr. Vecchio, do we have to read public comment? And public comment still has to be noted to be read into the record at a later time?
Yeah, it should be.
Okay.
It should be noted.
Mr. President, the next one is from Dr. Ann O'Brien, and it again is about the COVID and the detainees and ICE. It doesn't give an address. It just gives her name, Dr. Ann O'Brien, and we'll read the details of this email into the record at a later time.
Mr. President, can I just ask a question? Deborah, is it identical to those last three? Those were all word for word identical.
No, this is not.
Form email?
This is not identical to the last three. Should I read this one?
I think you should.
Okay. Dear Brendan Gill, I'm writing to request the release of people detained and held by ICE in the face of the COVID pandemic. The Bergen-Hudson, Essex County, Elizabeth Correctional Facilities have proved incapable of keeping people safe. Those detained at those facilities should be released immediately. Essex should end its contract with ICE. Please take action to stop the spread of the coronavirus and support the release of and an end to ICE and a transfer between facilities and the termination of the ICE contract. Human lives must be the first priority. Dr. Ann O'Brien. Okay. This is similar to other letters that I've read regarding the ICE detainees and the ICE contract. This one is from Douglas Pentland, and he lives in New York City. And that the details of this email will be read in the record at a later time, Mr. President. The next one is from Lena Fernandez. It is similar to several letters that I've already read, and we will read this with your permission, Mr. President, into the record at a later time. And she is a resident of Brooklyn, New York. The next one is from Laura Redmond. I don't have where she lives. It is similar to other emails regarding public comment that I've read into the record. With your permission, Mr. President, we'll read it into the record at a later time. And the last public comment I have is from Adam Kramer. Adam is from West Orange, and I will read his email. Clerk David Ford, kindly read into the record as petition form citizens as the freeholders cannot be in full public session during the pandemic. Adam Kramer, presumptive nominee, Republican Party, District 4 freeholder. A review of the agenda shows of millions of dollars of expenditures. Fixing roads and bridges and keeping the parks in good shape requires money and is a normal function of government. However, exceeding our tax bases is something that needs to be thought about. Here are some of the average households in our county. In Orange, New Jersey, a household with $60,000 in income and living in a $150,000 home would pay about $9,000 in property taxes, about 15% of income. In West Orange, a household with $120,000 income and living in a $350,000 home would pay about $14,000 in property taxes. About 12% of income, and in a household in Milburn of $250,000 income and a $1 million home would pay about 20,000 in property taxes, about 8% of income. This is much greater as a percentage of the household income going to property taxes than of just about all other counties in the state or the union. The United States has over 3,000 counties, and a typical household in the United States devotes about 2% of income in property taxes, and New Jersey, about 7% is the norm. The disparate burden of property taxes is also a big issue for renters in Essex County, as a landlord must devote very large part of the rent roll to property taxes. They cannot offer reasonable rental rates to their tenants. Also, these high property taxes inhibit businesses from starting or expanding in Essex County. And this results in a reduced employment options for the people of Essex County. Thus, please, in all your endeavors as freeholders, because of the burdens that you put on taxpayers as a result of your actions in every freeholder session. Also, please note, with job loss and business disruption during this pandemic, the tax base is really suffering, and additional spending by local government entities becomes even more problematic than in ordinary times. The other concern is that the county officials are releasing prisoners for Essex County Jail out of compassion and means to avoid viral infections from spreading during the ongoing pandemic. This compassion may be misplaced. Jails exist to make sure laws are respected, and so that the public safety and order is kept, so that the people and the property of the Essex County are protected from those who would do harm. Thus, the county needs to be very careful in this regard. Those who are suffering from viral infection really don't need not to also suffer from the crimes of violence or crimes against their property. Also, a release of prisoners is most likely to increase crimes in low-income areas and will in all likelihood harm the most vulnerable in our county. Thank you to the freeholders for listening, and thank you to all the freeholders for listening, and thank you to all those who work to keep us safe during the pandemic. And this is from Adam Kramer, West Orange, New Jersey. Mr. President, those are all the responses or emails that I received for public comment.
Deborah, we will be responding to all those questions in writing.
Yes, and Mr. President, as is our policy and practice.
Thank you.
And Mr. President,
Yep.
Mr. President, if I may, all of our public comments from our last meeting have been responded to in writing.
Okay, thank you. Freeholders, do we have any comments?
Through you, Mr. President, I just wanted to tell everyone in the viewing audience to please be careful. This pandemic is not over. It's getting worse. It's not getting better anytime soon. The governor has opened up some state parks and some golfing and some other things, but please be very responsible and respectful of the space and the 6-foot rule. Make sure you go out with your masks on, gloves if you have them, not just to protect yourself, but to protect others, protect your loved ones. What you don't want to do is go out and bring it back home to your loved ones and others. You don't want to spread this thing. I think everybody here or everyone in the audience knows someone who's been affected. So just be responsible when you go out, and please, please take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Richardson.
Mr. President, Freeholder Mercado. Yes, I would just like to put on the record, this pandemic has affected all of us in some way or another. and some of us even in a personal way. So I want to extend my thoughts and prayers to everyone that's been affected by it. I want to also recognize the extraordinary work of our essential staff here in the county who have done extraordinarily and sacrificed their time and their efforts to keep everyone else safe. And in particular, I want to recognize the Office of Emergency Management. They have done a phenomenal job in keeping us safe. They've been overseeing the testing sites. So just for all of our own recognition, we want to give them what's due, and that's to say to thank you to all of them. And once again, just as Vice President Richardson stated, we need to keep the social distance, and don't forget to wash the hands and stay home. And if you can't stay home, just be safe. So thank you.
If I could just add to that, may I add to that? I would just like to commend everyone who worked so hard yesterday at Branch Brook Park to give out thousands of boxes of food to all.
President,
Pat, your mic's off.
Mr. President,
Mr. President, you're on mute.
Mr. President,
Yeah, no, I know I was on mute. I just was trying to make sure that Freeholder Siebold was done because I know we weren't able to hear the remaining part of her remarks.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, were you talking to me? You didn't hear me?
We heard you.
Mr. President, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of those volunteers. We had over 25 volunteer nurses that were retired that came back to help us here in the county of Essex. And I am hoping that we get together as a board, and I've got the names being turned in through FITS, through our emergency management, so that we can honor them, because I look at it from perspective of if each one of those can save at least 100 people during this pandemic. That's over 2,500 people that's being saved. And I'm using that as a low number because they've been here since March, working voluntarily. And I think we should, at the end of this, really take the time to honor them for coming back from retirement and wanting to help save lives of the people here in Essex County.
Mr. President, Freeholder Mercado.
I agree, Freeholder Johnson.
Mr. President, if I could just add one last comment, and also Freeholder Siebold mentioned it. I just want to recognize and thank the administration and all the staff and volunteers that worked yesterday at the food distribution event held at Branch Brook Park yesterday. The lines were incredible to the extent that not everyone was able to get food. So the need is there, and hopefully we can continue to do and provide for the community. And again, thanks all the organizations that are doing extraordinary work in helping feeding our seniors. We have young people that are going and making masks. There's so many stories to tell. And I just want to, on the record, say thank you to each and every one of them. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may just take a minute, I wanted to remind the audience, to certainly remind the freeholders, that we do have our testing site open at Weequahic Park. And we do have, people can sign up for appointments to get tested. The website is www.essexcovid.org, www.essexcovid.org, and you can sign up and make appointments to go to get tested. You do have to have a vehicle to do that. But I would encourage, and it's free. I would encourage anybody, if you have constituents that you like to refer there, make sure everybody knows that there are opportunities now to sign up for appointments to get tested.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Also wanted to note that for those who are watching now, and we've received already some outreach, I'm sure many of my colleagues have, based on the executive order of the governor today to allow for golf courses to be reopened as of this Saturday, May 2nd. Also allowing all state parks to be reopened as of Saturday, May 2nd, but limited to walkways and passive recreation, not playground equipment or or restrooms and things of that nature. The County of Essex made, and the administration made a prudent decision to close our parks, actually ahead of the state. And which I think was a prudent decision. And as Freeholder Richardson noted, there's some encouraging numbers, but we're far from out of the woods just yet with this crisis. I'm assuming, Mr. Jackson, we'll be hearing from you shortly about what the county plans to do in terms of our parks. And comply. Well, we would have to rescind our own order in order to reopen our parks. So, many county parks were closed by the state, but we actually did it on our own before they did it. So, the executive order today gives us the option to reopen those parks, and I think we have collectively said that we're going to follow the direction of the state. So, do we have a time frame when we may know more or hear more about that decision?
Today, Mr. President, our county health officer met with our Parks Department officials, Mr. Salvante and Mr. Hartley, to go through what the protocol would look like, what the operation would look like to have it, our golf courses and some of our other facilities open, our parks. I would anticipate that we would be in a similar time frame as the state of New Jersey.
President Gill, Courtney Gassion, Essex County Council. If I can just add as well, my understanding as of a few hours ago is that the executive order from the governor has not been issued yet. There was just an announcement made. So we are waiting to get the executive order so we can review the particulars of the order and make sure that we're complying with all the different portions of that order as it relates to the protocol for the reopening of the golf courses and the county parks. I do know from our Parks Department that the intention is to open the golf courses effective Saturday in compliance with the governor's order. But again, we have to look at the language to make sure we're in compliance with all the requirements.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just when you can send an update to the board as quickly as possible, so we can provide that information as well.
Mr. President?
Yes.
This is Freeholder Cooper. I have a question. I apologize. I meant to send an email in advance to you and Vice President Richardson to ask if there's been any plans, Administrator Jackson, on how we're going to use the additional CDBG funding that we received from the federal government. Some municipalities across the state have been using their funds to do rent-to subsidies, mortgage subsidies, or small business grants and loans. So I was wondering if the county has made a decision yet as to how we intend to use those funds, especially with the federal government relaxing the rules around, the normal requirements where they would require you to put 20% set aside for businesses. Have we given any thought yet to that?
You're referring to the CARES Act money for COVID?
Specifically, I don't know if it was sent to the county and municipalities under the CARES Act. I just know I was reading a disbursement of the county and some municipalities getting additional CDBG and ESG grant funding. Have you guys received your notification yet? If not, I can share with you the link, the email that I was reading.
I'm not aware of the CDBG or the ESG funding. I don't have personal knowledge of that. We did. There is other, COVID funding, some supplemental COVID funding, but that is actually still, there have been a number of conference calls with the Treasury Department, the Federal Treasury Department, and also among New Jersey Association of Counties. Some of the guidance on that is still not clear. What some of that money could be used for. So until we get a little bit more clarity, we're not really even free to say what we can do with it. There are some of the things that we've done, buying PPE, the thermometers and some of the other costs that we had to, like the program we did just yesterday. Those kind of things are kind of clear-cut costs. Other things are just not have been clarified. So we're gonna wait a little bit and see where that goes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Jackson, through you and for Courtney, do we have any update on the timing of the appointments to the independent correction oversight board?
I don't have any direct knowledge of that, Mr. President. I did discuss it with the chief, and I know he's going to be looking at a time frame, but I don't know what that is. I'll get back with him and get with you.
Thank you.
And again, Courtney Gastione, Essex County Council. I'll just add to Mr. Jackson's comments that I believe that we have every intention of complying with the ordinance requirement that it is fully staffed by June.
Okay, thank you. Freeholders, additional questions or comments? I again wanted to thank the administration for their efforts, particularly over the last 6 weeks. All the freeholders are invited and receive this, but there's a daily call, 8 a.m. That I would encourage all my colleagues to participate in, which runs through our entire county family at a time of a crisis. Our constitutional officers, our legislative branch, and our administration, and what everyone's doing in each and every day. So really, hats off to our medical professionals, to the folks who are in our law enforcement agencies, our sheriff's department, who are helping to run our testing site, which the administration was able to get off the ground unbelievably quick. One of the issues with the testing site that has been highlighted, and I would encourage all my colleagues, is that right now we're not actually, the administration and all of us have, we fought like hell to make sure that we could have that testing site, that we could have the proper PPEs, that we could have the proper staffing for it, that we could have the test kits, but we're not hitting the total number of tests that we could actually administer from that site right now. And that just doesn't seem to add up based on the amount of people that we know are in need of being to be tested. And we know that increasing the amount of people being tested is one of the ways that we're going to emerge from this crisis. So we all have a responsibility to make sure through our own networks that we are publicizing as much as possible the opportunity to utilize the testing site in Weequahic Park, as long as that testing site is up and running, and we want to increase, as we move forward. So just again, encourage everyone to pay close attention to that. Also, Deborah, I don't know if you want to mention, one of the memoriams was for a former member, for those who worked for a former member of our office.
Yes, sadly, that was the passing of our public information officer who retired, Gary Crescent. And we sent out our thoughts and our condolences on behalf of the Freeholder Board to the family.
Thank you, Deborah.
Through you, Mr. President.
Yes.
Yeah, Gary was a great guy. Got along with him very well. When he left the freeholder office, he went and worked with Assemblyman Caputo. So I used to run into him at various events, and when I got the call from the Assemblyman that he had passed, man, it was like heart-wrenching, man. It was a guy I really had a lot of respect for. So, yeah, we lost a good guy.
No question. Sad to hear that. Sad to hear that. Freeholders, seeing no additional comments, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move it.
Second.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.